The first indication that something extraordinary was happening in Venus's atmosphere came during a routine spectral analysis. Dr. Naomi Rivera had been studying the data streams from the Helios orbital station's atmospheric sensors for months, looking for any chemical signatures that might indicate the presence of simple organic compounds. What she found instead would change human history forever. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her floating position in the observation dome. The holographic display before her showed patterns that defied conventional explanation, complex molecular structures appearing and disappearing in Venus's upper atmosphere, moving against the prevailing winds. Commander James Harrison drifted into the dome, his movements practiced and efficient after 18 months in microgravity. "Talk to me, Rivera. Your urgent message interrupted my sleep cycle." He didn't sound annoyed. After years of commanding space missions, Harrison knew that when his lead scientist called, it mattered. "Look at these readings, Commander." Naomi expanded the hologram, highlighting several areas of unusual activity. "These patterns, they're not random. They're showing signs of organization, of purpose." Her dark eyes reflected the shimmer of data streams, excitement barely contained in her voice. Harrison studied the display, his weathered face thoughtful. At 53, he'd seen enough false alarms to be cautious, but something about Rivera's certainty made him pause. "Walk me through it. What exactly are we looking at?" "These molecular structures are complex, far too complex to form naturally in these conditions. But more than that, they're moving in ways that suggest collective behavior. Like a school of fish, or a flock of birds." She manipulated the display, showing time-lapse footage of the pattern's movement. "They're responding to environmental changes, Commander. They're adapting." The implications hung in the air between them. Harrison ran a hand through his gray-streaked hair, a habit that betrayed his deep concentration. "Have you shared this with anyone else?" "Just Dr. Patel in biochemistry. He's already running verification protocols." Naomi pulled up another set of data. "But there's more. We're detecting electromagnetic signatures associated with these structures. Weak, but distinct. They're generating their own fields." Harrison's expression remained neutral, but his mind was already racing through protocols and procedures. If Rivera was right, and she usually was, they were sitting on the biggest scientific discovery in human history. Life, not just simple bacteria or basic organisms, but potentially intelligent life, existing in the hostile atmosphere of Venus. "All right," he said finally. "I'm calling an emergency team meeting. Get Patel, Dr. Yoshida from Xenobiology, and Dr. Kumar from Atmospheric Sciences. 1 hour, main conference room." He paused, looking out through the dome's transparent panels at the clouded face of Venus below. "And Rivera? Let's keep this contained for now. The last thing we need is speculation getting ahead of facts." The next few hours were a blur of presentations, debates, and careful analysis. Dr. Rajesh Patel's verification protocols confirmed Naomi's findings, while Dr. Yuki Yoshida's preliminary biological assessment suggested something unprecedented, a form of life that existed as a network of complex molecules, using Venus's harsh atmosphere not as an obstacle to overcome, but as an integral part of its existence. "It's beautiful," Dr. Kumar said, his voice filled with wonder as they watched new data stream in. "They're using the sulfuric acid clouds as a medium for chemical communication. The electromagnetic fields could be a byproduct of their molecular interactions, or..." He hesitated, "or they could be intentional." Harrison listened to his team's theories and explanations, asking pointed questions and ensuring every possibility was considered. But as the evidence mounted, one thing became clear: they needed to get closer. They needed samples. "I'm authorizing a collection mission," Harrison announced, silencing the excited discussions around the conference table. "Dr. Rivera, you'll lead the scientific team. Dr. Yoshida, I want you to design the collection protocols. Dr. Kumar, work with engineering to modify our atmospheric probe for sample containment. What about mission control? Naomi asked. When do we tell Earth? Harrison's expression was grim. We send the data package, but we proceed with collection before waiting for a response. The bureaucrats down there would debate this for months. We're here, we're equipped, and we're qualified. Sometimes it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. The next 48 hours were a frenzy of preparation. The engineering team, led by Technical Officer Miguel Torres, worked around the clock to modify their atmospheric probe, adding specialized collection equipment and reinforced containment systems. Dr. Yoshida's team developed protocols for handling unknown life forms, while Dr. Kumar's atmospheric models helped identify the optimal collection window. As Naomi suited up for the mission, she caught her reflection in the airlock's polished surface. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her face serious but her eyes bright with anticipation. She'd dreamed of moments like this since she was a child staring up at the stars from her grandmother's backyard in Puerto Rico. Now she was about to make first contact with an entirely new form of life. The collection probe was ready, its systems checked and rechecked. Commander Harrison's voice came through her comm system, steady and reassuring. Remember, this is reconnaissance only. We collect samples, we observe, we document. No unnecessary risks. Understood, Commander, Naomi replied, running through her final equipment checks. Beside her, Dr. Yoshida was doing the same, her movements precise and methodical. As the airlock cycle began, Naomi thought about what they might find. Would these life forms be truly intelligent? Were they already aware of humanity's presence? And most importantly, what would this discovery mean for humanity's understanding of life itself? The collection probe descended through Venus's upper atmosphere like a silver needle piercing a golden veil. From her position in the control module, Dr. Naomi Rivera watched the readings flood her display screen, each data point telling a story of an alien environment that somehow harbored life. Atmospheric density increasing, Technical Officer Torres reported from his station. All systems nominal. Probe integrity at 100%. His fingers danced across the holographic controls, making minute adjustments to their descent trajectory. Dr. Yoshida's voice came through the comm, tense with concentration. I'm picking up increased electromagnetic activity at bearing 045. The patterns are shifting. Almost like they're responding to our presence. The probe's external cameras transmitted stunning imagery of their surroundings. Through the thick, sulfuric clouds, they could see swirling patterns of darker material, moving with an unsettling purpose. The life forms they detected weren't just passive particles floating in Venus's atmosphere, they were actively swimming through it. Look at that, Dr. Kumar whispered, his voice filled with awe. They're organizing. The molecular structures are becoming more complex as we approach. The sensor readings confirmed his observation, the scattered particles were clustering together, forming intricate patterns that defied random chance. Commander Harrison's voice cut through their wonder. Stay focused. Begin collection sequence on my mark. He paused, studying the readings on his own display. Dr. Rivera, are you seeing these energy signatures? Yes, sir, Naomi replied, frowning at her screen. The electromagnetic pulses they detected earlier were growing stronger, more rhythmic. They're definitely reacting to our presence. The question is this a defensive response, or are they trying to communicate? The probe continued its descent, now surrounded by a dance of shifting particles that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The collection mechanism extended, its specialized fields designed to gather samples without disrupting the delicate molecular structures they were studying. Beginning collection sequence, Torres announced. Sample containment fields active. The moment the collection field activated, something extraordinary happened. The swirling particles around them didn't scatter or resist, they moved toward the collection mechanism with deliberate purpose. The sensors exploded with data as the life forms willingly entered the containment field. "This isn't possible," Dr. Yoshida muttered, her usual composure cracking. "They're cooperating. They're allowing themselves to be collected." Naomi stared at the readings, her heart pounding. "Or they want to be collected. Commander, these energy patterns, they're becoming more structured. More like signals," Harrison finished, his voice grim. "Dr. Kumar, analyze those patterns. I want to know if there's any correlation with known communication frequencies." The collection chamber filled quickly, the mysterious life forms swirling within their containment field like liquid starlight. But as the probe began its ascent back to the Helio station, the remaining particles in Venus's atmosphere began behaving even more strangely. "They're following us," Torres reported, his voice tight. "Maintaining formation at a distance of 50 meters. Sir, this is definitely not random behavior." Commander Harrison's decision was immediate. "Continue ascent as planned. But I want every sensor we have recording this. If they're trying to tell us something, I don't want to miss it." The journey back to the station was tense, all eyes fixed on the extraordinary parade of life forms escorting their probe through Venus's hostile skies. Dr. Kumar worked frantically at his station, analyzing the increasingly complex energy patterns being emitted by both their collected samples and their mysterious escorts. "The patterns are mathematical," he announced suddenly, his voice trembling with excitement. "They're repeating prime numbers, Commander. Simple sequences at first, but they're becoming more complex with each iteration. This isn't just life, this is intelligence." As they docked with the Helio station, the collected samples safely secured in their containment chamber, the escort of life forms finally dispersed, dissolving back into Venus's atmosphere like ghosts in the golden clouds. But the energy patterns continued, now being emitted by their collected samples with increasing intensity. "Get those samples to the main lab," Harrison ordered. "Full containment protocols. Dr. Rivera, Dr. Yoshida, I want preliminary analysis started immediately. Dr. Kumar, keep working on those patterns. If they're trying to communicate, I want to know what they're saying." The team worked through their sleep cycle, too excited and unnerved to rest. The samples in the containment chamber continued their mesmerizing dance, their movements becoming more complex and organized with each passing hour. Under the microscope, they revealed structures that defied conventional biology, networks of molecules that could reshape themselves at will, creating patterns of stunning complexity. "They're not just surviving in the acid clouds," Dr. Yoshida explained during their first analysis briefing. "They're using them. The sulfuric acid isn't a hostile environment to them, it's their medium, their ocean. They've evolved to thrive in conditions that would destroy any life form we know." But it was Dr. Kumar's analysis of the energy patterns that truly shook them. "The sequences are evolving," he reported, his dark eyes wide with wonder. "They started with mathematical constants, pi, phi, the square root of 2. But now..." He displayed a new set of patterns on the main screen. "Now they're sending us what appears to be a form of symbolic language." Commander Harrison studied the patterns, his expression thoughtful. "Are you saying they're learning our mathematics, using it to build a bridge to more complex communication?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, sir," Kumar replied. "And they're learning at an exponential rate." Naomi stood before the containment chamber, watching the swirling dance of their extraordinary captives. "We thought we were studying them," she said softly, "but I think they're studying us too. And I think they've been waiting for us to find them." As if in response to her words, the samples flared with new patterns of light and energy, their dance becoming even more complex. The first real conversation between humanity and an alien intelligence was about to begin, and no one aboard the Helio station was prepared for what they were about to learn. "They're changing again," Dr. Kumar announced, his voice hoarse from hours of continuous observation. The holographic display above the containment chamber pulsed with increasingly complex patterns of light and energy, forming shapes that seemed to hover between mathematics and meaning. The main laboratory of the Helio station had been transformed into a makeshift first contact center. Screens covered every available surface, each displaying different aspects of their extraordinary guests' attempts at communication. Dr. Rivera hadn't left the lab in 36 hours, surviving on synthetic coffee and the pure adrenaline of discovery. "Look at this sequence," she said, manipulating the central display. "They've moved beyond basic mathematical constants. These patterns." She traced a repeating sequence with her finger. "They're starting to resemble molecular structures. Our molecular structures." Commander Harrison leaned forward, his expression intense. "Are you saying they're mapping our biology?" "Not just mapping it," Dr. Yoshida interjected, pulling up her own analysis. "They're showing us comparisons. Here she highlighted a series of patterns. This is a human protein structure, and this." She pointed to an accompanying pattern. "This is their equivalent. They're teaching us their biology by relating it to our own." The revelation sent a ripple of excitement through the team. For 3 days, they'd watched as their Venusian visitors progressed from mathematical basics to increasingly sophisticated attempts at communication. Now, it seemed, they were ready to share their true nature. "Incoming transmission," Torres called from his station. The specimens in the containment chamber had begun emitting new patterns, more complex than anything they'd seen before. The energy signatures pulsed with an almost musical rhythm, creating three-dimensional structures in the air above the chamber. Dr. Kumar's fingers flew across his keyboard, his advanced linguistics algorithm struggling to keep up with the flood of new data. "This is incredible," he breathed. "They're not just showing us their biology, they're showing us their history. Look at these time markers." The holographic display filled with a sequence of images that seemed to tell a story. They showed Venus as it might have been billions of years ago, when its surface was still potentially habitable. Then came the runaway greenhouse effect, the rising temperatures, the transformation into the hellish world they knew today. "They evolved," Naomi whispered, understanding dawning in her eyes. "As Venus changed, they changed with it. They didn't just adapt to the acid clouds, they became them. They transformed themselves into a form that could thrive in what should have been impossible conditions." Commander Harrison watched the display with growing concern. "Are they showing us this as a warning? About what could happen to Earth?" "No," Dr. Yoshida said suddenly, her eyes wide. "I don't think this is a warning. I think it's an invitation." The patterns shifted again, forming new structures that seemed to reach out toward the humans watching them. The energy signatures changed frequency, resonating with the station's own electronic systems in a way that should have been impossible through the containment field. "They're not just intelligent," Kumar said, his voice filled with wonder. "They're a collective consciousness. Each particle, each molecular structure, is part of a larger whole. They don't just communicate, they share thoughts, memories, experiences." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Torres jumped to his console, his face pale. "Sir, we're detecting unauthorized access attempts in our computer systems. The energy signatures from the specimens, they're interfacing with our technology somehow." "Shut it down," Harrison ordered, but even as the words left his mouth, screens throughout the lab began displaying new patterns, new messages. The Venusian life forms weren't just trying to communicate anymore, they were reaching out, connecting, integrating. "Wait," Naomi called out, studying the new data streaming across her screen. "This isn't an attack. Look at what they're sharing." The displays filled with information, detailed maps of Venus's atmosphere, complex chemical processes that could revolutionize human technology, and most importantly, a proposal. The Venusian Collective was offering to teach humanity how to adapt, how to evolve, how to transform themselves as they had done billions of years ago. "They've been watching us," Dr. Yoshida realized. All these years we've been studying Venus, they've been studying us. Learning our language, our technology, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Commander Harrison stood silent for a long moment, weighing the implications. Dr. Rivera, he said finally, what do you make of their offer? Naomi stared at the swirling patterns in the containment chamber, her mind racing with possibilities. They're offering us a gift, Commander. The gift of adaptation, of survival. They've learned to thrive in one of the most hostile environments imaginable, and they want to share that knowledge. But at what cost? Harrison asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. The specimens responded as if they'd understood, their patterns shifting to show new images, scenes of cooperation, of shared discovery, of two very different forms of life learning from each other. They weren't offering to change humanity, they were offering to help humanity change itself. Send a message to Earth, Harrison decided. Tell them we've made first contact, and that everything we thought we knew about life in the universe is about to change. As the message was prepared, the Venusian life forms continued their dance in the containment chamber, their patterns now synchronized with the beating hearts of the humans watching them. The barrier between two forms of consciousness was beginning to blur, and the true implications of their discovery were only just beginning to unfold. The response from Earth arrived 18 hours after they sent their report. Commander Harrison gathered the team in the main conference room, his face grave as he prepared to deliver the message. The swirling patterns of their Venusian guests cast shifting shadows across the walls, their presence now integrated into nearly every system on the station. Mission Control has concerns, Harrison began, choosing his words carefully. They're dispatching a containment team. Their orders are to secure the specimens and transfer them to a planetary facility. That's insane, Naomi protested, rising from her seat. They can't just treat them like lab samples. These beings are intelligent, they're cooperative, they're sharing knowledge that could revolutionize human civilization. Dr. Kumar nodded in agreement. The advances they've shown us in molecular engineering alone could solve half of Earth's environmental crisis. And their understanding of consciousness transfer. That's exactly what has them worried, Harrison interrupted. The ability to transfer consciousness, to reshape matter at the molecular level, Earth's governments see it as a potential threat. They're afraid of what this technology could mean in the wrong hands. The containment chamber pulsed with new patterns, and the station's screens filled with images. The Venusian collective was listening, understanding, responding. They showed scenes of cooperation, of shared discovery, but also of warning, the consequences of fear, of isolation, of missed opportunities. They're trying to tell us something, Dr. Yoshida said, studying the patterns. Look at these molecular structures they're showing us. They're not just about adaptation anymore. They're showing us integration. Technical Officer Torres suddenly straightened at his console. Commander, you need to see this. The specimens, they're changing the composition of their containment field. They're not trying to break out, they're modifying it. Making it more efficient. They're showing us trust, Naomi realized. They could have broken out at any time, their control over molecular structures makes our containment technology primitive by comparison. But they're choosing to stay, to work with us, to improve our technology rather than override it. The station's lights flickered, and new patterns appeared across every screen. The Venusian collective was presenting something new, a proposal that made even Harrison catch his breath. They're offering to teach us how to create a permanent bridge between our two species, Dr. Kumar translated, his voice filled with awe. Not just communication, not just knowledge exchange, but a true symbiosis. They've learned to adapt to almost any environment, they could help us survive anywhere in the solar system. Or they could be trying to take control of our technology, our bodies, our entire civilization, Harrison countered, playing devil's advocate despite his own growing belief in their visitors' benign intentions. The patterns shifted again, and this time the message was clear even without translation. The Venusian collective showed them their own history, not just their adaptation to Venus's changing environment, but their development of consciousness, of ethics, of a society based on cooperation and shared growth. They had evolved beyond the need for conquest or control. "Look at these energy patterns," Torres called out. "They're matching their output exactly to our system's tolerances. They could overwhelm us, but instead, they're deliberately limiting themselves to work within our parameters." Dr. Yoshida moved to the containment chamber, placing her hand against its surface. The patterns within swirled in response, creating a mirror image of her hand's molecular structure. "They're not trying to change us," she said softly. "They're trying to show us how to change ourselves, how to grow beyond our limitations." A new alert sounded. The containment team's ship had departed Earth. They had less than 48 hours before it arrived. "We need to make a decision," Harrison announced, looking at each member of his team. "Do we follow orders and hand over these beings to be locked away in some government facility? Or do we stand by our discoveries, our understanding of who and what they really are?" Naomi stepped forward. "Commander, when we first detected signs of life in Venus's atmosphere, we didn't wait for permission to investigate. We acted because it was the right thing to do, because discovery and understanding are what we're here for." The patterns in the containment chamber pulsed in rhythm with her words, as if emphasizing her point. The Venusian collective had shown them visions of possible futures, human outposts thriving on Venus, Mars, and beyond, protected and sustained by their shared technology. A future where humanity could reach for the stars without fear of hostile environments or resource limitations. "They're offering us evolution," Dr. Kumar said, "but they're letting us choose the path. That's not the action of a hostile force." Commander Harrison stood silent for a long moment, weighing his options, his responsibility to Earth against his duty to science and discovery. Finally, he turned to Torres. "How long would it take to transfer all our research data to a secure backup?" Torres understood immediately. "About 6 hours, sir. Less if our guests help with the data compression." "Do it," Harrison ordered. "Dr. Rivera, Dr. Yoshida, prepare a detailed report of everything we've learned, everything they've shown us. Dr. Kumar, work with them to create a communication protocol that Earth's scientists can understand." "And the containment team?" Naomi asked. Harrison's expression was determined. "By the time they arrive, they'll find all our research, all our discoveries, and a choice: continue the partnership we've begun here, or lose the greatest opportunity humanity has ever encountered." The patterns in the containment chamber swirled with new intensity, creating complex structures that seemed to bridge the gap between their world and humanity's. The next 48 hours would determine not just the future of their discovery, but potentially the future of human evolution itself. The containment team's ship was 6 hours from docking when everything changed. Dr. Rivera stood in the main lab, watching new patterns emerge from their Venusian guests, patterns unlike anything they'd seen before. The entire team had gathered, knowing these might be their last moments with the extraordinary beings they discovered. "They're showing us something new," Dr. Kumar announced, his voice tight with excitement. The holographic displays filled with complex molecular structures, but these weren't just demonstrations, they were instructions. "It's a gift," Dr. Yoshida breathed, studying the data. "They're showing us how to create an environmental interface, a way to survive in Venus's atmosphere without traditional protective equipment. But it's more than that." Commander Harrison leaned forward, his expression intense. "Explain." "They're not just giving us technology," Naomi said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "They're showing us how to establish a permanent connection between our species. A true symbiosis that could be passed down through generations." The patterns in the containment chamber pulsed in confirmation, creating three-dimensional models of human DNA interwoven with their own molecular structures. It wasn't invasion or replacement, it was enhancement, adaptation, evolution. Technical Officer Torres spoke up from his station. Commander, I'm detecting new energy signatures from Venus's atmosphere. The collective, their entire species, they're gathering. It's like they're preparing for something. Through the station's windows, they could see it, swirling patterns in Venus's clouds, visible even from orbit. The entire Venusian collective was assembling, creating structures visible from space, sending a message that even Earth's most hardened skeptics couldn't ignore. They're forcing the issue, Harrison realized. Making themselves so visible that no one can deny their existence or their intelligence. The containment chamber's patterns shifted again, and Dr. Kumar's translation algorithm decoded their message: we offer partnership, not submission. Evolution, not conquest. The choice must be yours. Naomi stepped closer to the chamber, watching the intricate dance of molecules within. They've been waiting for us to reach this point, not just technologically, but ethically. They needed to know if we could handle this kind of advancement responsibly. Message from Earth, Torres announced suddenly. Multiple sources, not just mission control. The scientific community is in an uproar. The atmospheric displays are visible from Earth's most powerful telescopes. Harrison smiled for the first time in days. They've taken the choice out of the bureaucrats' hands. The whole world is watching now. The containment team's ship was now close enough for visual contact, but they weren't broadcasting threats or demands. Instead, their first transmission was a request for scientific data, for understanding. They want to know everything, Torres reported, reading the incoming messages. Every major space agency is demanding information. They're ordering the containment team to stand down. The patterns in the chamber swirled triumphantly, and new data began streaming across their screens: more knowledge, more secrets, more possibilities. The Venusian collective was keeping their promise, sharing everything they'd learned over billions of years of evolution. Look at this, Dr. Yoshida called out, studying a new set of molecular diagrams. They're not just showing us how to survive on Venus. These adaptations, they could work anywhere. Mars, Europa, even the gas giants. They're giving us the keys to the solar system. Commander Harrison gathered his team around the main display. Dr. Rivera, begin documenting everything. Dr. Kumar, establish a broader communication protocol. Dr. Yoshida, start analyzing these biological interfaces. Torres, make sure every byte of data is backed up and secured. What about them? Naomi asked, gesturing to the containment chamber. Do we keep them confined? The patterns shifted one final time, forming a simple message: the chamber is yours to open. Trust, like evolution, must begin somewhere. Harrison looked at each member of his team, seeing the same certainty in their eyes that he felt in his heart. With a nod, he gave the command, open it. The containment field dissolved, but the Venusian beings didn't disperse or escape. Instead, they formed a complex, stable structure in the center of the lab, a bridge between their world and humanity's, a symbol of what was to come. Send a message to Earth, Harrison ordered, his voice firm. Tell them that today marks the beginning of humanity's next great leap forward. We've found not just life on Venus, but partners in evolution. The Venusian collective pulsed with approval, their patterns merging with the station systems in a dance of perfect harmony. Above them, Venus glowed in the black of space, its clouds swirling with intelligence and promise. They had done more than discover alien life, they had opened the door to humanity's transformation. As the containment team's ship docked, they were met not with resistance or conflict, but with a demonstration of cooperation that would change human history forever. The beings from Venus's clouds had shown them that evolution wasn't just about survival, it was about growth, adaptation, and the courage to reach across the void between worlds. Dr. Rivera looked out at Venus, its atmosphere now alive with visible patterns of intelligence and purpose. We thought we were reaching for the stars, she said softly. But they were reaching back all along. The future had arrived, not with invasion or conflict, but with an offer of partnership that would propel humanity toward its next great adventure. The story of life on Venus was just beginning, and its chapters would be written not in conquest or competition, but in the shared language of evolution and discovery.